Anatomy of a message, exploring the content, intent, and emotion of a message. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to differentiate between content, intent, and emotion in a message, recognize barriers to effective communication, and discuss the dynamics of a linguistic style. The process of messaging begins with an idea. The presenter encodes his or her message and shares it via some communication channel, including a verbal presentation, a written document, a text, an email, a letter, or video. In the perfect situation, the receiver decodes the message and exactly interprets the message as the messenger originally intended. In this situation, the communication is successful and a mutual understanding might lead to an action. Unfortunately, the decoding of the message often is not congruent with what the messenger meant to say or write. Something was lost in the translation. Let's look at the anatomy of a message, which helps us realize why misunderstandings occur. There are three parts to a message: the content, the intent behind the message, and the emotion. And by the way, all of that occurs within some context, a situation, an event. Within the workplace, the discussion might center on a marketing campaign or a strategic planning activity. In working with your clients, it might focus on a conversation about cash and debt management. The circumstances are already there, and the communication message flows from that situation. When I think about content effectiveness and communicating with clients, the first element that comes to mind is the clarity of the message. A presentation or a consultation is effective when complex content is simplified. Simplified enough to make the message understandable. It's advisable to avoid industry jargon, especially when working with a client who lacks financial sophistication or couples with different levels of financial knowledge or experience. Clarity is improved when the message is customized for the client or the audience. Steve Jobs shared the idea of distilling the message, eliminating extraneous verbiage, and getting right down to the core ideas. Taking the time to make complex easy to understand takes time and effort, but it moves mountains. As you probably realize, visuals can often tell the story far better than words. The message is more believable when the speaker is perceived to be credible. Industry credentials, proper attire for the situation, self-confidence, and public speaking and language skills all contribute to this positive perception. And position yourself as an expert, the speaker is more inclined to be receptive to the message. Authenticity in the delivery of that message and the conviction in the message content are important attributes that add to the credibility. A speaker will generally connect with a listener when he or she shares stories about how their personal actions and experiences align with the message. The connection will be improved when the listener can hear and feel just how much the speaker believes in the validity and the value of the message. Moreover, the believability of the message is elevated when there is an existing relationship between the speaker and the receiver. There's an interesting TED video by Amy Cuddy entitled, "Your Body Language Shares Who You Are." In the video, the speaker suggests that practicing power poses when we're alone and then visualizing those poses when we're in a meeting with clients elevates our own self-confidence. The poses and what we say to ourselves is for us, not the audience. Quoting her, "Our bodies change our minds, and our minds change our behaviors, and our behaviors change our outcomes. I think you'll find it worthwhile watching and then reflecting on the message from this video. During the term, you'll be exploring numerous topics as they relate to communications. One of the topics is culture, which includes gender differences. Kathleen Kingsbury frames the generalized differences between males and females in her article entitled How to Give Financial Advice to Women, Attracting and Retaining High Net Worth Female Clients. I want to emphasize the word generalized because each client is unique and we need to know our clients. The table on this slide summarizes some of the key differences as Ms. Kingsbury frames in her article. The female client values the ongoing collaborative relationship with the financial planner and what she has heard. The long-term impact of planning recommendations on the family are thoroughly discussed, and feelings are discussed. The relationship and mutual dialogue are key elements. In contrast, the male client tends to focus on solutions, analysis of problems, answers, and timely decision-making. The outcomes, rather than the process, are the focus. Assuming that these generalizations apply to your specific client, do you see how the message itself and the delivery of that message would differ depending on the gender? We'll continue to explore the idea of matching content and message delivery to the audience or resonance as we move forward in the course. There are numerous barriers that block message effectiveness. These include tangible or physical barriers, such as interruptions to the meeting, street noise, a cell phone buzzing, or heating and cooling issues that make the room uncomfortable. Language issues, whether verbal difficulties because English is the second language, cultural nonverbal inconsistencies, and even the use of financial terms and concepts that are unfamiliar to the client. Client filters, such as preconceptions, biases, and attitudes. Assumptions about the messenger, lack of attention or interest in the subject, and cognitive sets, the way the client processes information and makes decisions. Our job is to recognize the possible barriers and plan ways to minimize them. We essentially remove the communication barriers which block the path. Linguistic style, a person's vocabulary, the way he or she forms sentences, phrases, which is referred to as syntactic patterns, their volume, pace and intonation, the changing of vocal pitch, is referred to as linguistic style. As you might expect, linguistic style is influenced by culture, geographic region, education, gender, and age. A complete mismatch in linguistic style between the messenger and the receiver may lead to uncomfortable and unproductive interactions. Mirroring is a technique in which the presenter matches the receiver's linguistic style and posture. Mirroring can be quite effective, and empirical research confirms that people unconsciously pick up and match the linguistic style and nonverbal body position when they like one another. A second part of the message is intent. What does the messenger intend to convey or achieve in encoding and delivering the content? Is it to educate, influence, motivate, or enlighten the client? The speaker's intention is a fundamental piece of the communication message. If the intent is not properly decoded, then the true meaning of the message is lost. That is why the receiver's perception of the speaker's intent is so important. Clearly, there would be a different reaction to a message in which the client believes the message is educational rather than a sales pitch. There'd be a difference in reaction depending on whether the client perceived the message as empowering versus controlling, or collaborative versus controlling. The intent addresses the issue of who benefits from the message, the advisor or the client, the messenger or the receiver. The receiver's perception of intent might be quite different from the intent of the encoder. Misunderstandings may occur because of cultural differences, mental states, for example, being tired, past experience, and context, including the circumstances and facts surrounding the event. Removing boulders means being aware of the differences that might cloud the true intent of the message. One technique that you could consider when dealing with a sensitive message is to have a trusted colleague review your message for content, context, and tone. The third part of the message is emotion. Professor Rich McAndrew, who teaches for Cal Lutheran in the School of Management, shared, "Your presentation is a transfer of emotion. It's about what you feel is important. It's your connection to the audience. The messenger's emotion, his or her belief in the value of the message, their passion for the subject, and heartfelt feelings are part of what's being communicated. It's an inseparable part of the message, and emotion absolutely connects you to the listener." So how do we emotionally connect with our financial planning clients? In short, we communicate the client's story. Our recommendations are linked to the client's prioritized goals. For example, we help our client project how they're going to feel in watching their child walk up on that graduation stage to receive their college diploma. We help the couple visualize what they're going to feel like in living out their dream retirement. Or we enable the client to relate to that feeling of pride that comes from home ownership. Our presentations are personalized because that shows that we know our client and we care. We may show the dollar impact of planning recommendations because that connects on a cognitive and an emotional level. And of course, we always focus on the client-planner relationship. When you create positive feelings, the client will connect to the message, and that will promote action in implementing recommendations. So how might we make our messages memorable? As just discussed, linking recommendations to the client's prioritized goals will create a memorable conversation. Storytelling is a powerful technique, whether stories are about your own experience or those of an anonymous client. Think about structuring the message in a way that balances the challenges with positive messaging. And remember to consider the way the message connects to prior experiences or personal traits of the client, including acknowledging gender differences. In this lesson, you were introduced to the process of messaging, including the meaning, intent, and emotion of the message, communication barriers, and dynamics of linguistic style.